Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in into another video of the video game Armory. Today we will be covering the Double Action Revolver from GTA Online. Starting off by a quick analysis of the model, we can see that it's a faithful reproduction of the Colt Model 1892 revolver. The grips themselves may be slightly different from some other models, but some Colt 1892 models do have this kind of grips, not mother pearl, but what I'm saying is simply the shape at the bottom. Some have them slightly rounded up, some have them straight cut out like this. Only real noticeable difference is the fact that the revolver is more airtight. If you look at the space that's been left for the revolver cylinder on the frame, it's way less compared to the actual Colt Model 1892. The consequences that arise from this are shorter barrel and shorter ejector rod. Diving deeper into a better analysis of the model in game, we can notice that some things aren't quite right, but there are very few and little things. Now this is not a mistake, it's a detail on the weapon model. You can notice, for example, that it's coated in gold, or what appears to be gold. It has engravings on it, which seem to be of the Baroque style from Red Dead 2 or Red Dead Online, and it presents itself with mother pearl grips. On the mother pearl grips, there are no fancy engravings, however, there is the main logo of the manufacturer, where normally in the real-life model you would see the Colt logo. On the rest of the weapon, however, there appear to be no markings whatsoever. Moving on with the first thing that bugs me out a little bit is the fact that the gutter side in the model, while to some may appear like it's an actual dent in the model itself, it's actually a texture. The gutter sights do not have any depth to them, they're just textured in the model. This is the reason why, when you aim down sights, the gutter sights aren't properly aligned with the front notch. Should you pay attention to the model while aiming, you'll notice that the front notch will protrude upwards actually quite a bit compared to the gutter sight start. And with this, we have covered already two mistakes on Rockstar's behalf. The gutter sights are not modeled, and thus, because of this, you cannot aim down sights. The cylinder itself, however, for example, is really well modeled, and everything on the cylinder is exactly what you would find in a Colt Model 1892, which is what this weapon is based upon. While the model is impeccably correct, there are still some issues with it actually. Colt revolvers turn their cylinder clockwise. In game, however, the cylinder is turned counterclockwise, much like a Smith & Wesson revolver, instead of a Colt one. Moving on, however, to some other things that Rockstar has done properly. For example, you can notice that the barrel itself has got rifling, which is very cool. Neat detail, Rockstar. We want to see this more. But there's also another issue where the barrel itself, if you look down it, it's plugged. So you get this issue where the barrel is well detailed in the rifling, but then you look down it and you notice it's plugged. And that's a bit of an oxymoron in my opinion. It would have cost them nothing to make it open. And another thing that really adds to insult to injury is the fact that when you fire the weapon and you notice the cylinder spin, you do not notice the empty casing left on the chamber that has been fired, which is quite funny. The thing is, I would have understood this with primers, not with bullets, however. Like, Rockstar has added an editor mode where maybe you do want to capture these small little details and neat stuff. Other than those two little minor things, I guess, no big deal on the rest of these components. The rifling seems to be good. Another detail that I've really liked is, for example, how well made the cylinder release latches. It looks very similar, if not one-to-one, with the Model 1892. But then again, the weapon itself is fairly accurate, almost a one-to-one replica, if it wasn't for some minor issues. When swinging out the cylinder, is that this one is way more airtight. You will also notice that for some reason, there is a spindle, the same spindle that you would find on the base of a revolver, mounted on the frame. That does not make any sense to me. When you open a revolver and you look inside the frame, you should not see that round part right there. You should see a small rectangular cutout and a lever. Said lever is connected to the trigger and pushes up on that spindle thing, which is normally attached to the revolver cylinder. In this case, the revolver cylinder's ejector. However, in this one you find it attached on the frame. Mysterious, and I believe would not actually even work. While we're at it and we're looking at the inside of the frame, we can also point out the fact that when, for example, you fire the gun slowly and you see the hammer getting pulled back, there is no hole for the firing pin that is is fixed to the hammer, not a mistake in this case since we're talking about a pretty old revolver. But like I said, when you pull back the trigger, the fixed firing pin has no place where to go. It would still slam against the frame, making the detail where bullets don't get fired very realistic if it wasn't for the fact that the weapon still shoots somehow. The reload animation is slightly messed up. When pushing back on the ejector rod, it does not actually get pushed back, and another issue is the fact that when the casings do get extracted, they do not match the 38 long ammo, which is straight walled. The casings are actually bottlenecked for some reason. Another cool thing about the weapon is the fact that you can notice its double action nature when you fire it. If you play on a controller, you can pull back slowly on the trigger, and you can see that the more you pull the trigger, the more the mechanism advances in its phase of cocking the hammer and striking. This is what makes a revolver a double action revolver. The double action revolver manages to do everything with a trigger pull, while the single action requires manual hammer cocking. Moving on to the ballistic performance. Now, for being such an oddball of a weapon, it has some interesting advantages that don't give it too much of an edge, but give it an interesting potential functionality. Now, for being a 38 long revolver, this one deals 81 damage per shot, which is very good. And another interesting detail is that this weapon does not lose any damage over range. It still does the same amount over the maximum range, which is 120 meters or 384 feet. By the way, this is taken from the wiki, so thank you. Overall, it's faster than the single action models, and it's a very good damage per shot weapon, and it's quite accurate. However, the thing is, with only 6 rounds, you're gonna be at a disadvantage against someone who has 10 rounds. So you either have a good aim, or you know exactly when to reload so that you don't get caught with your pants down, so to say, or you switch to something that is, you know, an auto-loader design that can hold more ammo. Sadly, it's the fate of revolvers in this game. They get most of the time outclassed by any self-loading designs, especially because with an extended magazine modification, even the least capiant of firearms will still have more rounds than the revolver. With this said, the double action revolver is a nice and welcome change in the roster of weapons that are present in GTA Online. In its own way, this weapon is exotic and allows players to revolutionize their own playstyle or try out new different playstyles or simply tackle the game from a different point of view when it comes to fighting. For the player that takes on new challenges, this weapon will prove quite a new and welcome addition, for they will be able to play in an entirely different way and be tested in entirely different manners when fighting against players or bots. However, for the player that is looking for a new weapon that gives you some sort of edge against your opponents, this one gives far too little in terms of advantages compared to what others can give. You're most likely looking for a jack of all trades and not the ice pick that you want for that specific sculpture. You might look for new other weapons and avoid this one entirely. Might as well even remove it from your roster. This is all for this video. Thank you for tuning in. Have a nice day, and we'll catch you in the next one.